Welcome to your September homeowner update. I know, I feel like I should be wearing like an orange sweater, have a pumpkin spice latte, but I live in Florida, so we don't have seasons, so it's always summer here. Okay, there's two big things we're gonna be talking about today. We're gonna be talking about refinance mania, what you need to watch out for so you don't get ripped off. We're gonna be talking about property taxes. That's right. There's a couple states right now that are talking about getting rid of property taxes. I know, it sounds crazy, but it's something that I'm watching very closely because I do think there is a lot of change that needs to happen when it comes to property taxes. So before we start, if you're new to the channel, my team is licensed in 50 states to help you out with mortgages. We will always give you good advice. You know, whether it makes sense to refi, it doesn't make sense to refi, you're having trouble with something, just call us, 786-933-2077. Okay, let's talk about refinance mania. If you've been watching the news, you see that rates have been coming down. Now, this is September 15th. The next Fed meeting is at the end of the week. And a lot of people are holding off right now on locking their rates because they think that if the Fed lowers rates, that then mortgage rates will go down further. The Fed does not control mortgage rates directly. Now look, if they cut a quarter, right, I would expect rates to stay the same. If they cut more, you could see mortgage rates go up. That's what we saw last year. Last year when the Fed came out, and they did, I believe it was a 0.5 cut. I should have looked up the history before I said it. Instead of a quarter, rates went up. And they went up because the market was like, what do we not know? And mortgages are more closely tied to the 10-year treasury. So that's number one. Here's the thing. Could refinancing make sense? Yeah, but let me give you guys a couple easy guide rails, because that's the thing. If your rate's 2, 3, 4, 5%, no, it doesn't make sense. The only way a refinance would make sense is if you're in economic trouble and you need to pay off some debt. If you have a $100,000 loan and you have $50,000 in credit card debt that you are drowning with, then yes, refinancing even into a higher rate may make sense. Otherwise, no. No. As I filmed this, so where are rates roughly? Now it's important to note that it depends on the loan program. In some loans, it depends on how much equity you have in the house and credit scores. In the Govy space right now, I'm seeing mid to high fives. In the conventional space, I'm seeing low mid to mid 6, okay? But once again, like conventional, especially if your credit score is not good, I'm seeing 7+. So just know that the rate that you get is unique to your scenario. So if you got something in the mail that says, oh, we can give you 6%. First of all, anything you get in the mail, tear it up. Tear it up. It's trash, guys. Mortgage rates change every single day and they're unique to your scenario. Everything you're getting in the mail is just trying to bait you to call. A lot of times they impersonate your real lender. I'm not even kidding. Like, we have so many people who, thankfully, our clients text us. They're like, is this really you? And I'm like, nope. They'll put RE guaranteed rate, but it's not us. So the mail, I would throw it away. Here's the thing that I think you need to watch out for right now. There's three big things. If a lender is telling you, hey, you get to skip 2 payments, but they're not explaining that you're still paying for those months' interest at closing, that's a red flag. Whenever you hear salesy language, oh yeah, let's refi, you can skip 2 payments, no out-of-pocket costs, yeah, we're gonna get your rate real low, you need to ask more questions. You know, I am seeing a lot of loan estimates where, yes, the homeowner's rate is going down. They're like, Jen, I'm at 4.5. And I'm like, okay, how much is that costing? Well, they said no out of pocket, so it's free. No out of pocket means you're not writing a check, but they're increasing your loan amount to cover the costs. And I've seen some where it's like $35,000. Refinancing doesn't actually make sense. But what they're doing is they're selling you all these discount points so that you look at the rate and you go, oh, it must make sense. But guess what? If you're buying the rate at certain levels, it doesn't. It's just stripping your equity. So really, really be careful. We are doing mortgage reviews. So let me tell you what that is. What a mortgage review is it's not just looking at the rate. Yes, we look at your interest rate. But for example, let's say that your rate, you've been paying extra every month because you want to pay off that mortgage sooner. You're at a 30-year right now. I would look at a 20-year. In a situation like that, a 20-year might be a good fit for you. So I would be looking at a 30, but I'd also look at a 20 if you were super aggressively paying down your mortgage and you had gotten a raise and like no debt, maybe a 15-year, right? What's going on right now is so many lenders are just selling the lowest rate that they're pushing people who may be in a 30-year fixed loan into an adjustable rate mortgage. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you right now, don't do it. No. So look, we look at the rate, but we also look at what your lifestyle is. You know, I've had clients where they're in a 15-year and we refi to a 30 because maybe they had less overtime or they have a new baby and a 15-year mortgage doesn't work anymore. So a big part of the mortgage review is looking at how you're treating your mortgage, where you are financially, what we could potentially do with rates. The other big one is homeowners insurance. So we had a client recently, he came to us because he's like, oh my gosh, guys, you know, my homeowners insurance doubled. You know, I'm freaking out if I can afford my house. So what we did is we looked at the mortgage. It didn't make sense to refi, but we had him talk to Dwan at Rate Insurance, who got his insurance cut back in half. You know, it was a different insurance company. It was one that I actually usually like, but the fact that they doubled this guy's insurance in a year, red flag, right? Anything like that. And most homeowners aren't even paying attention to their insurance, and the insurance companies know it. And it's when you get those escrow analysis and suddenly your bill jumps that you notice. So keep an eye out on your insurance. But we talk about that. You know, what's your insurance at? We'll have Dwan look at it, see if he can get you a better deal. And then we're also talking about your long-term goals with the house. Very important. I had a client a couple of years ago, Claudia, and she had called me because she's like, hey, I'm doing this refi. Can you make sure I'm getting a good deal? And I looked at it and I was like, wow, like this is like a lot in closing costs. Your rate's going down significantly, but how long are you going to keep the house for? Oh, well, I'm going to sell it in a year. Wait, did you tell the other lender that? Yeah, they know. The closing costs were close to $40,000. There was no way that was ever going to pay off in 10 million years. You know, if you're looking at selling the house within 6 months to a year, refinancing does not make sense unless, like, look, if you were thinking of selling the house in a year and the refinance paid itself off within 4 months, okay, right? But if you're thinking of selling in a year and the refinance takes 10 years to pay off, that doesn't make sense, right? But what's going on in the industry right now is there's a lot of mortgage salespeople and not a lot of mortgage advisors. So yes, my team does free mortgage reviews, whether you're a past client or you've worked with another lender or you're thinking of refining and you just want an honest opinion, give us a call. 786-933-2077. I'll also have a link probably in the comments and the body of this video where you can book a mortgage review. So really important, you know, it makes me so sad to see people getting their equity stripped. And having your equity stripped is basically like, let's say that you owe $200 on a house and a lender's like, oh, I can get you 1% lower, but then your loan's $220. Like, that's no good. That's not good. And we're seeing a lot of that right now. So please be careful. Let's talk about the states. I have like 900 pages on this, so let's talk about property taxes. Property taxes in America are a problem in many states and areas, period. You know, when we look at the cost of buying a house, it used to be that the mortgage payment was the biggest cost. Yeah, not so much anymore. You know, we're seeing the property taxes and the insurance be more than half the payment in some states. That's wild. So insurance is a whole other, you know, barrel of monkeys that we're not seeing a lot of movement on that barrel of monkeys yet. But property taxes, we're starting to see some movement. And I would argue that on a national scale, it's Governor DeSantis in Florida that brought this to light. Now, I live in Florida right now, so of course I was paying attention because Florida property taxes, man, there's certain counties where it's close to 2%, and these houses are not cheap, so it adds up real quick. He's been talking about in America, it's ridiculous that you pay off your house, but the fact that you're still paying the government to live there, you don't really own it. I think he compared it to a TV. Can you imagine paying for a TV? It's almost like a subscription service, right? So he's been very vocal about it, which is interesting because we have seen in Florida that he has been able to change stuff. And my hope is that if he or one of these other states comes up with a positive way to do this that can be adapted, we see states around the nation follow. So let's talk about the states that are looking at it, and then we're going to talk about why it's not really the state that is the problem in most instances. So the states are Florida, Pennsylvania is talking about getting rid of some property taxes. Wyoming's considering eliminating property taxes. They're all looking at doing this via a constitutional amendment. Kansas is looking at changing some property taxes. Ohio and North Dakota. So those are the states right now that are talking about this. And what I'm actually going to do is on jenniferbeeston.com, we're putting it together, but Amy on my team, she's amazing. She's going to be tracking all these different states and watching this, and she's going to be updating on the website because we all need to be aware of this. Whether it's a state you live in, a state you own in or not, it's something you want to watch because if it looks good, it's something you want to push at your state, right? That's the thing. I feel like over the last few years, so many people have stopped being vocal just because being vocal is very high risk right now, as we've seen. And unfortunately, we're leading to, when it comes to property taxes, we're leading to issues where people can't afford their homes after they paid them off because the property taxes are so darn high. So I am glad that people in government are starting to realize this, and I think that it's going to be up to us, the citizens, once we see a good model to push it out to other states. Now, here's the funny thing. Most states themselves, it's not the state that's charging you the property tax. It's counties and cities. So what we'll see, like I'll use Florida for example, is that maybe the county property tax is 1%, but then there's certain cities where they have a tax on top of that of like 0.5 or 0.6. So if the state said, oh, we're just going to get rid of state property taxes. In certain states, that doesn't do anything. It's really the county, the city, the school. It's those taxes that are in many cases the most expensive, okay? And you're like, well, wait, so we can't really get rid of property taxes then, Jen. What I'm hopeful is that this will lead to some level of caps, right? I think about Florida again. Yeah, I was looking at a city recently and they have a city property tax of 0.63%. That's right. That's a lot of money, guys. And it's a very expensive area. And it's like, all that's happened over the last few years is the city just has more and more money to spend. And when you look at what they're spending it on, you're like, I really don't need this $200 million bow sculpture or whatever it is, right? Actually, you guys should look that up. Miami, it's not 0.63%, but Miami does have this bow sculpture. I think it might be in the bill. There's a crazy number attached. I'll see if I can find you guys the article. But it's like, I don't want to pay property taxes for that. Like, I do think that at the county and city level, there's many parts of the country where there's no fiscal responsibility. And if I'm seeing a homeowner get pushed out and a damn bow, like, come on, it's not right. It's not right. So sorry to get fired. I'm not sorry to get fired. I'm fired up. It's not right. It's not right. And that's the thing. So many of us don't vote because we're sitting there going, oh, it's city, it's county. What do they control? Well, if you're a homeowner and you start, like, you're a homeowner, go get your property tax bill. Look at what you're paying for line by line by line, and then look at what they're spending it on. Now, look, there's some parts of the country where they are fiscally responsible and they are treating your dollars right. I think. I just made an enemy with every politician in America. I am not suicidal. I'm just going to say that right now. But look at it. Time to get involved. So keep an eye on jenniferbeeston.com. Look, this is good. It's good that people are talking about property taxes and reducing them or finding a way to eliminate them. We need that. We need that overall. So I hope this video was helpful. If you guys want a mortgage review, or if you're like, oh my gosh, Jen, I'm about to refi. They told me I should do an ARM. Any of that, just call us, 786-933-2077. What do you think about this property tax? And look, I know there's gonna be people that go, without property taxes, who will pay for the fire? Who will pay for this? Who will pay for that? I'm not saying that we should let go of firefighters or police officers or anything else like that, but there can be different ways. Okay, and that's what Florida is going to be looking at, is how do we pay for things, and is it just that you're limiting, it could be with a city tax that maybe it's limited at $1,000 per home instead of, certain homes where maybe they're getting $50,000, $60,000, crazy stuff. So I hope this video is helpful. Thank you for watching. Yeah, what do you guys think? What do you think about property taxes, and how many calls are you getting to refi? Thanks for watching.